Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel CareersTalk, where we invite Agilists around the world to share their real experience with all of us, which benefit thousands of Scrum Masters so far. So, this is the third part of the series with Apoorva. Got 5 offer letters from various MNCs in the past. So, I will put the link of part 1 and part 2 in the description box so you can check it later. So friends, before we start, small request. If you are new to our channel, do subscribe for real Scrum Master interview sessions and don't forget to hit like. Your one like is a big motivation for all of us. So with this, let's welcome Apoorva. Apoorva, thank you for coming one more time. Apoorva.
Hi, Sunal. Thanks for inviting me again. I'm happy to be part of Careers Talk again. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a long fan following now, Apoorva. You might have seen the comments. So it's
Yes.
really inspiring that you help a lot of people out there. Okay. So
Thank
without wasting time, Apoorva, if you allow, shall we start with our Q&A?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. So as a Scrum Master, we also involve in production release, right? So can you describe your approach to creating a production release plan? And also, what are the key components which you consider? And what are the different stakeholders that are involved during this process? Apoorva?
Okay. So to come up with a release plan, basically some prerequisites, what I would say is one, we should have a prioritized backlog, like which is the first priority, which is the next, or which is a good to have, not so important. We need a prioritized backlog. Normally the prioritized backlog comes from the business owners, product managers, and the PO team, basically the business team. They prioritize the backlog. After that, we need to have a high level estimate on the stories. It just can't be a ballpark with a lot of things in a story and not getting estimated. So it should be like we know normally it is in story points, Fibonacci series, not more than 8 story points or 13 story points, whatever our organization is not wanting to go beyond. So in our case, it is like not more than 8 story points. They don't even want to go till 30. So you have a high level estimate on every story, and we need to have an initial estimate velocity of the team. Normally what happens is even before the team starts sprinting, we will be requested to come up with a release plan when we can go for the first MVP and things like that. So what I would suggest is, like, if you don't know the velocity of the team, if they've not yet started sprinting, if the same team has already delivered another agile project, probably lagbhag same, we'll have the same velocity again this time also. So you can kind of consider that velocity again this time. Or if you have a totally new team, totally newly recruited, you have no idea what their velocity is. Uh, I can just give you a small idea of how you can come up with a high level estimate, like best case, worst case kind of scenario. So first, take your capacity. Say you have 4 people in your team. Each of them you're considering productive for 6 hours initially, because they're all new to the team. Lot of friction will be there. The collaboration is not so good. So let's take it as 6 hours per day, and 10 working days, that considering a 15-day sprint. So 4 into 6 into 10 is around 240 hours per sprint. So now you have the estimated stories for you. Each estimated story, break it down to the tasks which you would be performing, say like dev task, QA task, your any DB related task if you have, integration task, and ask the team to kind of estimate, or even if you don't have a team, by experience, you can just estimate how many hours it might take. Say a dev, the dev part, which is the major one, might take 20 hours, and the QA another 4 hours, 2 hours, things like that. So for a 5-pointer, if you add up all the subtasks, you might end up saying it would take around 30 hours. So out of your capacity of 240 hours per sprint, reduce 30 hours. Go on like this until you're not left with any more hours. So I have just done a rough math, and probably if you select an 8-pointer, a 5-pointer story like that, you might get a best case of around 40 story points for a 240-hour capacity team. That's the best case, but we will also have to consider leaves, holidays, unplanned leaves, and things like that. I straight away cut about 30% for that, or even downtimes and things like that. So that will come down to around 30 story points. So the best case is 40, worst case is 30. So within that is the range for your team. So we got the velocity now. So there are two types of coming up with a release plan. Either the management will say, by this date, I want to go live. By then, how many features can you give me? Or they say, these many features have to be there in my first release. By when can we go? Both cannot be constrained. You can't say this much has to go within this time. Then it's not agile, right? So that is fixed scope or fixed date. So let's go with fixed scope first. So for fixed scope, if you want to, the scope is fixed. So you need to determine how many number of sprints are required to complete this much scope. So number of sprints is equal to the total story points that has to be completed divided by your velocity. So if the scope is like they say features worth of 200 story points, so that's your story point worth divided by, first we'll divide by the best case velocity, that is around 40. 200 by 40, that gives you 5 sprints, best case. The same 200 by 30, which is your worst case, it will give you around 7 sprints. So which on an average, you can tell the management, you would need 5 to 7 sprints to complete this much amount of work. That is around 2.5 to 3.5 months. So that's how you come up with a plan. And as we all know, it's agile. It's not like this is not fixed. We should be okay to change. Change is the only constant. As and when if you hit roadblocks or change in business priority, you'll have to change. But definitely we all need something to start off with. So that's how we can come up with that plan. And coming to the fixed date, they want to go live by this date. So what can you give us by then? Say the team starts printing by October, beginning of October 2023. And the management wants to take the first MVP live by December end, which gives us 3 months. That is around 6 sprints of 15 days each. So total story points, that is the total scope which we can deliver, is the number of sprints into the initial velocity. Number of sprints we just saw was 6 sprints, and initial velocity best case is 40. So that will come up to 240 story points. Worst case, 6 sprints into 30 story points. That's around 180 story points. If you average it out, again, it will come to the same 200 story points. So you can say these features based on your priority can go live by December end if we don't hit any unknown blockers. So that's how I would go for the release plan.
That's a elaborate answer, but I think whoever is going to watch this, I think they have to maybe read on this section again and again to understand it. But this is absolutely fabulous answer, I would say, Apurva. You just nail it. Okay,
Thanks. Thanks.
but a follow-up question on this. So, okay, now the release is happening, let's say, for example. Now,
Mhm.
definitely we are going to find some challenges during the release. Some downtime will be there, some disruption will be there, right? So, what are the different strategies which you use to minimize the downtime or the different disruption during a production release? And specifically for some critical systems, for example, if you're working for banks and things like that,
Mm.
that's very critical system. So, how do you approach?
Okay, so one of the most common things that most agile projects take up now is the DevOps practices. You have the dev team and the ops team together so that the friction is reduced. As part of along with that, one of the best practices is to have the continuous integration and continuous deployment. We have a suite of tools now like Jenkins, Kubernetes, Puppet, so many tools which help us to create the CI/CD pipeline. Along with that, you automate the CI/CD pipeline, even the better. So when you automate it, what happens? Like whenever somebody is trying to push some code into the mainstream, it directly goes by itself and checks the static code analyzer like SonarQube or whatever they're using. Only if there's no code smells or anything serious is not there, only then it will allow them to check in. Along with that, if you have created a regression test suite with minimum happy path scenarios, then only after these test cases have passed, then it will allow you to check in. So by that, you are kind of ascertaining that you're not basically breaking any functionalities and you're not actually violating your coding standards. That is, the code quality is not getting compromised. Now, after you have taken care of this much, when you're going into production, normally two very commonly used methods are canary deployment and something what you call blue-green deployment. In the canary deployment, what they do is the new version of the production code is released to only a certain set of users, where they test it, validate it. Only after they say everything is working fine, you use a load balancer to slowly move the entire load onto the new version. So in this case, like you are not facing a lot of issues. The rollback may be minimal, but the problem with this is backward compatibility is a little of a challenge, but it is quite widely used. The other one, which is actually my favorite, is blue-green deployment, where there are two identical versions of the production environment. Say, in the blue, you are all running the current version that is yet to be upgraded. What the production users are using, it is there on green, say. And on the blue, you deploy your new code, you test it, validate it, do everything. And only after you find it is working fine, you slowly migrate everybody using a load balancer from green to blue. So in that case, the transition is so smooth, there is no downtime at all. And even in case you want to use the other version, you already have it in the green server ready. The only con of this one is the cost. You have to maintain two production servers. If your team or if your company is ready to invest on the infrastructure, this is the best one. Other than this, there are a few other approaches like A/B deployment or rolling deployment, which is not so common. In rolling deployment, slowly, gradually, it moves you to the next version, but there's a lot of complex orchestration involved, and backward compatibility rollback is difficult, so not so much preferred. A/B deployment is also like a section of users are asked to test the older version and few on the newer version. The problem in this one is then whichever works well, everybody that one is put into production. But in that case, again, the sampling size it's a little bit tricky. Have we considered the right users for the new version and things like that? So I feel the canary and the blue-green deployment is a better approach.
Wonderful, excellent, Apoorva. Okay, let's move on.
Sure.
This question is again, I think, somewhat different, and I'm not sure. I'm not able to even recall that we have covered this. So I think this is the first time we are asking this question on our channel, and that is about something called Muda. That is a type of waste. So if you can provide some examples of common type of waste that occur in agile development. So
Okay.
that's the question. And then follow-up question is like how you are going to eliminate or reduce those kind of waste, because in every project, irrespective of agile or any other way of working, we have a lot of waste. So
Correct.
that's the question, Apoorva.
Sure. So normally when it comes to Muda, it's comes from the Japanese word, all of us know that, and it's more so from the production environment, like factories and things like that, the motion waste and those kind of waste. Slightly analogized version for agile development is like some of the 7 wastes are partially done work, and you're just doing extra features, having lot of handoffs, and continuous context switching, and waiting for some other teams, a lot of defects, and probably relearning. So I'll just give a slight explanation on each of them and how we can avoid that. So starting with a partially done work. It's like for any team, whether it is agile team or any other manufacturing team, the asset is always something which is completed. And whatever is half done is always a liability. So if you have started 10 items at a time and you've finished only 2, at the end of the sprint, only those 2 are your asset. The rest 8 are liabilities. Same for the production also. You have to, in a pencil production company, only if 2 pencils are ready, that's all. Even if you're 90% done on the rest 8, it's waste. So that's where our WIP limits and all come into play if you're using Kanban. So you're limiting work in progress and pushing people to complete what they've started. Even if a team has completed their work and it is bottled up in somewhere else, they are encouraged to help the others who are caught up, move it through, complete it, and then only pick up the other. That's when actual assets starts getting created. So that is about partially done work. On extra features, you have prepared something and it is on production, but later you get to know very few people or nobody is using it. So that is also a waste of team's time, energy, talent, everything. So for this, the best thing is prevention is better than cure. The business team has to kind of do a proper market research and take their customer satisfaction surveys seriously and go through what exactly the customer wants and then only bring it to the developers table instead of making them work on something else which is not probably much needed. And the next one is on the handoffs, like one team completing their work, handing off to another team. What happens here is one, there is a knowledge drain. So you tell something to somebody, definitely some percentage is lost on that. And the ownership is also lost because, okay, my part is done, I'm done with it. Nobody is worried about the final product. So the handoffs should be avoided as much as possible. And I think most agile teams are taking care of that now by having cross-functional teams. Your developers, testers, and ops people, everybody is on your team, and it happens within the team. Whatever handoff is there, it happens within the team. And another thing what you can do is like kind of cross-train your team on every aspect. They don't need to be an expert in that, but they can understand the challenges of the other person in the team. So then they get the ownership as a whole. So that way you can try to avoid handoffs. If there is a real requirement you have to hand off, then you have to come up with processes which ensure that you have quality handoffs. You shouldn't be losing knowledge or ownership in the process. So that's how you can do that. And task switching, that is like multitasking. You are assigning the developer 3-4 stories at a time. Continuously, they are working for some time on this, some time on the other one. When context switching happens, they're confused. A lot of things start becoming like half done. Again, it comes back to the first one where partially done work kind of issues, and creates a lot of confusion. So try to get, this also comes to the WIP limit only, almost like that. You finish one task, then take the other. Don't overload the team members with multiple tasks. And the other one is waiting time. Like you have a dependency on a service, you have done your work half and you're sitting and waiting for them. It will create kind of frustration for the team because they're not able to finish. And it also brings down their morale because after putting in some hard work, if they're not able to complete it, that successful factor, that feeling of completion is not there. So the best way to avoid this is to have a very strong DOR or definition of ready. Ensure that everything you need is in place and only then pick it onto the developer's table. So that way you can avoid the waiting time. But of course, sometimes it is unavoidable. You think that the service is ready. One attribute in the service has got missed out. You'll have to put it on hold. But that is okay. But at least if you can, in the plan, you just don't pick it up thinking that, okay, by the time we pick it up, this will be ready. That instead of assumption, you should take it only if it is ready at this point in time. And then relearning. This happens basically when you have a feature you have already developed 3 months ago, and after 3 or 4 months, the business owners or the business people come back and say, we need to do some more enhancement on this, some CRs on this. The point is, after so many months of gap, the team has moved on. Maybe the developers who worked on it may not even be there. Even if they're there, they might have forgotten. So they have to sit and again analyze the code, see what what we have done till now, and then pick up what it is, what new features required. So that will take a little extra effort from their part. So from the business side, if they're able to visualize most of the features they would need on a particular fragment, complete all of it together and then move on. I understand like some CRs do come up like that. After the end users give you a feedback, then you realize, okay, we should have had that. But at least major part, if you don't have, it's a better thing. So that's how you can avoid that. And the last one is defects. That's always a bug which is eating you. Either is it at home or in your software or wherever it is. Better get rid of them early than later. Earlier, it will become a small thing. It could be a SEV3, SEV4. But if you leave it for a long time, it just the way it multiplies at home, it becomes harder and difficult to crack it down and make your code cleaner as and when time progresses. So as and when you get the defects, better try to address them sooner. So this is what I feel. And other than these, maybe management meetings is also many times a waste. Too many meetings if you are pulling the teams into without clear goals, without clear outcomes, it's a very difficult situation. They are not anymore interested. And again, context switching, going back to their job, where they had left it out, that's a problem. And the last one is probably unused talent. You hire a lot of people, you don't have enough work to give them. You're waiting. They lose out on their motivation and morale. So that is also not such a good practice.
Excellent. Great, Apurva. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about Canvan now. So, what are the advantages which you have seen by using the swim lanes on the board, and how do they help to visualize and manage the work of an entire team? So, if you can also throw some light on this, that would be great, Apurva.
Okay. So basically, a Kanban board is like splitting your work into various vertical streams. Like the most basic one is to do WIP, work in progress, and done. Or if it is only for a development team, analysis in progress, design in progress, dev in progress, unit testing, then push it to QA. So it gives you various phases, and the tickets move through each of them vertically. So, but if you want a horizontal approach, you want to visualize, like for a particular work stream, there are 3 Scrum teams working on a particular product. By team wise, if you want to see, or within a team, if you want to see how each person is working, that is a horizontal visualization which you need. That is what the swim lanes give us. So, as a manager, you want to see the entire work stream, how it is working. You have 3 teams A, B, C. You create 3 swim lanes for that. Each one, if you keep opening, you'll see, okay, swim lane A has so many tickets, and most of them is bottled up in this particular phase. So you know where the bottleneck for this team is. And swim lane B, likewise, and C in the same way. Same way, even within a team, especially when you're running stand-ups and all, it's very easy if you have swim lanes for each person. You know how much they are loaded, how much is in their to-do bucket, how much they're working on, and things like that. So that's why I feel that the swim lanes are really useful for visualization.
That's great. So, one follow-up question on this, and we have also seen a lot of time that there might be few team members or some stakeholders that are going to push you as a Scrum Master or as a team to increase the WIP limit on the Kanban board. So,
Hmm.
what do you think? What will be the impact this will have on the flow of the work? So, we increase the WIP limit just like that.
Correct. So first of all, I would like to understand from the team or the stakeholders why they want to increase the WIP limit. What is their thought process? What are they thinking by doing increasing the WIP limit? What might happen is their point of view. Then mostly they would say that we'll be able to complete more work. You are holding us back and things like that. Then as a facilitator, as a Scrum Master, I should get into the facilitator role and try to tell them that too many work in progress will finally like lead you to half-baked cakes. You won't get any finished products in the end. And by the rule of thumb, normally it is like the range for the WIP limit is how many ever team members you have plus 1 till twice the team limit. If you have 5 members, you can have it from 6 to 10. So you can also see what is your current WIP limit, 6 to 10. If it's within that range, you try to push back and tell them that I think we are doing good now. And once, it's not like once they'll keep telling you often, right? So you'll get to know if they are already exhausting their WIP limits often, and why is it getting stuck up somewhere. So that's a reason for us to do a retrospective of the blocked area, right? So we can help the team to collaborate and fix those problems and then move ahead. If they're extremely adamant, they just really want to increase the WIP limit at any cost, maybe you can tell them we won't do it all of a sudden. We'll just increase by 1. We'll see for a month or 1.5 months, see how it goes. We'll see the metrics, if it's things are improving or not. If it's not improving, if it's getting for the worse, which I think will happen, we'll have to come back. If as per you, if I'm wrong, if things are going to get better, then we can go ahead and have a bigger WIP limit. But as all of us know, if you increase it, more blocked items, that's what we are going to get out of it. But I think we can't dictate terms to them. Maybe we can incorporate the suggestion they have.
That's great. Wonderful. Okay, so let's now shift to safe.
Sure.
This is again a kind of scenario question. So imagine that you are doing your PI planning event, right? There is some kind of disagreement among different teams regarding the scope and the priority of the certain features. So how would
Okay.
you as a scrum master facilitate a constructive discussion, and how you're going to help your teams to come to a common ground in order to ensure that the successful PI planning is going to happen? So that's a difficult scenario for a scrum master. So Apurva.
Correct. Yeah, sure. So normally in our team, what we do is when we come up with the product backlog for that particular PI itself, we ask the POs to give the priority of each epic then and there itself. Uh, I would first like to touch upon a couple of roles which will help us to come up with this priority, then go on to the whatever conflict we have right now. So the first role I would like to highlight is the business owner. Business owner is at kind of top at the hierarchy, who has direct contact with the end users. So they are daily interacting with the end users, getting their feedback, their pulse, and understanding what needs to go into the product, what needs to go into the next version of our software. So they get the priority, maximum idea of the priority from the end users. So they then discuss with the next stakeholder called the product manager. The product manager is somebody who creates epics based on whatever the business owners say. These are required. So in a required format of an epic or a feature, they bring it down to a term which can be laid out to the development team. So the product managers again write down the stories, and a couple of product owners, each product owner or probably one product owner is assigned to one scrum team or two or three scrum teams, like that. They discuss with the product manager and come down with the story level details which is required for the teams to start development. From the business perspective, from testing perspective, from the technical perspective, whatever is required, it comes down to the story level. So I would suggest that the priority has to be decided by these three entities. That is the business owner, the product manager, and the POs together. It's not anybody else's responsibility to come up with the priority. Only if you have a problem like a dependency, a lower priority item, until we complete that, we can't do this because of this dependency. Only then you take it back to this forum and discuss with them. And if you are anyway not able to do, they will have to agree that you have to do a lower priority item and then come back to this. But if there is no such dependency and they are giving you a priority, I don't think dev team or the architect or the scrum master should have any say on the priority, because at the end of the day, the company has to make money, the project has to be a profit. For that reason, the priority is extremely important, and you should allow the right people to prioritize them for you. Only if there is a technical dependency or difficulty which the business is not able to understand. So as a scrum master, probably I know little technical, little of business, so I can convert the heavily technical knowledge into a business language for them so that they can understand. And during the PI planning, when we present the PI plans to the business owners, we can come up with these challenges and get the reprioritization done. So I think that's a good idea to have this on.
Absolutely agree with you. Okay, let's move on. Again, one more kind of scenario question, that as a scrum master of an art, agile restrain, let's say you observe that some teams are delivering high quality increment, while there are few teams who are struggle with some defects and technical depth. So
Mhm.
how would you work with these teams to ensure a consistent quality across the art? That's again an important aspect to working in art. So yes, Apurva.
Yeah. So what I would say here is, in the agile release train, some of the teams may be old. They might have started little earlier than the other teams. Like in the time frame, new teams start getting added. So the older teams are slightly more mature than the newer teams. Quite understandable. In such cases, the consistency of the older teams are definitely going to be a little better than the newer teams. That's what happened in our art also. So what they did from the management side is, initially the older teams, they required less facilitation from the scrum master side, so they gave the same scrum master one mature team and one new team. So you can kind of bring in the best features from the new team and give it to the fresh team, so that they can learn from the best practices of the new team. That is one approach. Secondly, I would, as a Scrum Master still, I would go through the retrospective points of both the high performing team and the struggling team. Normally, what I have found as a pattern is, whatever the strengths or whatever went well for this high performing team would have come into the not so well or the areas of improvement for the new team. So then you know which are the areas which is you need to concentrate on. Then you bring them on a call, at least the tech lead. If it's a technical point, you get the tech leads on call, or if it's a testing issue, you get the testers on call and get them to do a session, brainstorming or a best practice sharing session for the new team. That is one approach. And a very formal opportunity in art, what we have is the inspect and adapt. So in the inspect and adapt, the new teams can bring up the issues what they have faced throughout that PI. And if it is a common issue like that is being faced by many of the new teams, say like a dependency on a service or test data not being available, those kind of problems which is of high impact for most teams can be taken into a problem solving workshop, where you drill down through various RCA techniques like Ishikawa, 5i, and those kind of things. And then you brainstorm on solutions for that, which probably you can try and implement in the next upcoming PI. That is one approach. And the third one, what we did in our art is, we came up with the certain qualitative and quantitative parameters which each of the team has to report, and all of them are in percentages. It's not in numbers, it's in percentage, so that for your capacity, for your team, how well you're doing. So the quantitative ones, we are calling them KPIs, that is key process indicators. Something like, what is your capacity, what is your velocity, and how much is your carryover percentage. You have agreed for so many story points, how much are you carrying over? That is how much of the committed work you could not complete, and how much of it is business driven. Like, out of, if you've committed for 100 story points, maybe like 30 story points you're doing defects, enablement work, tech debt clearance. It's important, but it is not bringing any value to the end customer on their plate. So you need to be very cautious about how much effort you're putting on the functional aspect and how much on your cleaning your code aspect. And we have given kind of green zones for each of them. For a business driven, at least 80% of your backlog, what you're doing in this sprint should be 80% at least should be business driven, and things like that. And carryover also, you can't have more than 7% carryover, and things like that. That is same for all the teams. So that will kind of give you a comparative study of which is actually a well-performing team or not. Somebody may have more people, so they're giving more output, does not mean that a team which is smaller giving you less output is not that they are a low performing team. Similarly, we have qualitative measures which we call as OKRs, that is objective and key result oriented matrices. That is like the percentage of code coverage. Out of the total code you have, how much percentage of it is covered in your unit test cases, and how much percentage of it is automated. And if you have committed to say 20 epics at the beginning of the PI, at the sprint 2 or sprint 3, towards the mid PI, how much is your feature delivery percentage? Around mid PI means you should be around 50% complete, right? So if you're committed to 20 epics, around 9 or 10 you should have completed. But if you have completed only 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, which means you are behind schedule. So then you'll have to do an RCA and find out what happened. Similarly, we have something called the C2C, that is change to commitment. How many unplanned epics are getting populated into your bucket as and when sprints progresses. So more unplanned work means the team has not prepared for it. They have not estimated it well. The dependencies are not known properly. For any business urgency or something, things are just getting pushed into it. If the C2C is getting bigger than 15%, then it goes into the red zone, and we try to find out why it's happening and things like that. So all these aspects will help us to help out teams which are struggling, and also to bring out the best practices from well-doing teams.
Wonderful. Thank you, Apoorva, for that elaborated answer.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's move on. Uh, we have system demos in SAFe way of working. So where team have to showcase their solutions to the larger audience, right? So how would you help as a Scrum master? How you are going to help your Scrum teams to prepare and participate in these demos? And you have to ensure that their contribution are well presented to a larger context of the program. So
Yes.
Apoorva.
Yeah. So for system demos, normally what I do as a best practice is, we know that the system demo will come towards the end of the PI. So after every sprint, when we have the sprint demo, I make a note of what are the items which we have demoed. So by the end of the PI, every sprint's demo items, I have it handy. So I consolidate all of them together. Then we have a session with the tech leads and the POs, and ask them which of these are very important ones which we need to consider for the system demo. So if something hasn't gone into any of the sprint demos, there's no chance of that getting into the PI demo at all. So we already have a big list out of which we need to pick out the important features. So once that is decided what is going into this bucket, then probably normally what we do is the test lead is doing the demos in every sprint. So we allow them to do it because they have idea of the test data and the platform, and ensure that things are working well. And worst case, something happens during the demo, they have their screenshots ready, at least to show the screenshots that this is how it's going to work, something has happened today. So at least the business will get to know that this is what this team has done. And before, at least 1 or 2 days before, when we get a notification from the RT that your team is going to get this much time in the PI demo, we do a dry run to ensure that we are sticking to the time frame, because we don't want to get cut in between. Maybe we will lose out on doing the demo of some very important features if we get cut in between. So we do a dry run that way. And as a best practice, what we are trying to do is, we'll have a one single slider where you put in, like, just very high level, how many epics were completed in this PI. That is amounting to how many story points. That will give the enormity of the amount of work that has been accomplished to the business from the team's side. And if there are a couple of Scrum teams working on that particular product, we add the various teams and add everybody's name in it, so that everybody feels happy to see their names on the screen when the entire art is being there out there. And also during the same demo, if we are doing any thank you kind of notes to any main participants, that will also be mentioned there for their exquisite contribution. And yeah, so that's how we go through it. So far it's going well with that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Apoorva. Okay, I think we come to an end. So
Yeah,
thank you again, Apoorva, for joining us today.
thank you
And
so
friends,
much.
we hope you found this particular session helpful. I thoroughly love it, enjoy it. So don't forget to leave a comment and like this video to show your support. Your feedback help us to create more valuable content for you. And if you are new here, please subscribe and become a part of our CareersTalk family. So see you next time, next session. Thank you, Apoorva, one more time.
Thank you.